Welcome back, guys. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of me actually being out on the water fishing, we're going to talk about my most recent musky trips back home in Iowa. So let's get to it. Alright, so going off of the first trip that I had back home in August, wasn't really planning on doing much fishing. I did bring the GoPros, definitely should have turned them on to capture these fish, but instead, for whatever reason, I decided to leave them in the truck. And here we are talking about instead of you guys actually being able to see. So to start things off, did the normal thing, going back home, not obviously fishing back home that much. Went to the local bait shops and asked them for tips and advice on how to go about catching the fish. What they recommended I do is work the docks, and with me shore fishing instead of having the boat out, because I didn't bring that with me. I was working the docks like how they said, and instead of actually getting up on the docks, I was shore fishing and casting my baits down up alongside the docks. And after doing that for a little bit, my mom was with me when I caught this first fish, and she is the awesome camera lady to capture those pictures. And so here's the first fish. This one I was working the docks, casting up along them, and there's boats attached onto the docks, and so I cast it over by this one boat and then worked it back in towards the dock. And when I did that, as soon as I made that turn to get to the dock and straighten it back out, going up alongside the dock, that's when this fish hit. Caught the fish on the Joe Booker Slot Master that I have here. Same color pattern. The only thing that's different about this is from getting it brand new out of the box is they come with, on the back side there on the hook, they come with a little grub tail. Muskies have teeth, and plastic versus teeth do not hold up well. This is a color pattern. The tail that I did have was an orange one, and I did buy another one after catching these fish and whatnot and getting their attention with it. So with that, tried this other Joe Booker Slot Master. It did not work out. This one, this color pattern in particular, was tried and true between this first fish and then also the three afterwards that I did catch off of the same bait. And the reason why I still have it on today is because it works. So handling this fish, especially shore fishing and whatnot, down towards the right side of my knee and right below the fish's head, there was a little pocket right there of water that, because I didn't have a net, what I did was I just pulled it into that little area right there, kept it in the water. It was deep enough to where the fish would stay right there. When I got the hook out of it, real quick, got that picture, and then got back released into the water. No harm done to that. That thing instantly swam off as soon as it hit the water again. That's really it for this fish. The only thing I can say is that if you're having a tough time musky fishing, bring mom out, because there's a reason why mom is good luck. Going into the next fish, this was later on in the day, mom had already left. Hanging out with my cousin, told him that I caught a muskie, and so he was interested in catching one too. We met up with each other, and then we were working the docks in a different area of the lake. Both of us were casting back and forth. I was still rocking the, like I said, tried and true Joe Booker Slot Master as shown before. My cousin, he was working a black double whatever size blades they were, bucktail. We're thinking he had this fish first. Not sure what happened, but I was getting ready to go move to a different spot, and we'll walk down the docks, go to a different spot. I just happened to look back at the right time and see him hooking on to a muskie right there as he was about to pull his bait up out of the water. Not sure what his deal is. He's really bad luck with hooking muskies, because he lost another muskie on this most recent trip in September when I went back home. And so I go back to where he was at and where I was initially fishing at. Both of us are casting around, none of us are catching anything, and then we swap sides because he was off to the docks left of us and I was off docks right of us casting around. And then we swap sides. I start casting off to the left, and then he starts walking down. Then 2 or 3 casts in, I cast over towards the dock, get my bait perfectly under a jet ski that was attached onto the dock, and as soon as that bait hit the water, out of nowhere, I see this huge tail come up out of the water, and then I maybe gave it one crank on the reel, and the fish was hooked on. So the second fish, as shown here, the second fish was not nearly as big as that first one, and didn't have a tape measure for the first one, and didn't think to do this with that first one. But on the second one, this one I'm showing you now, with this fish, we measured it going off of the tip of my rod, working way down to the eyelids and whatnot. That fish measured at, I think it was like the third or fourth eyelid down from the bottom, and then taking a tape measure to it later on, measured out to be around 34.5 inches or so. And then so guessing, judging by the pictures of that first one compared to the second one, that first one was probably in around the 40s, low 40s to mid 40s inch range, and got that fish. It also did this to my hand. It, granted, the first fish got me a little bit too, it wasn't as bad, but that second fish, it got my hand from my pinky, my right hand ring finger, across the top of my hand, and not really as bloody, but it did chew up the skin on my finger right here. So I learned my lesson with that, so I thought. So then this next fish, the third fish that I caught, this fish I had just got done going out to dinner with the in-laws and whatnot, and then on the way back over to my parents' house, because that's where I was staying that night, on the way back, the lake was on the way, so I figured why not, I'll stop and give it a try again, because I was already there. And so this was at like 10:30 at night when I was fishing, and when I caught this third fish, this one had almost given up for the night, was on the last cast, and that was what I thought I was going to do, was have that cast be the last one, until this fish had came up, and right as I was about to pull the bait up out of the water, still using the Joe Booker Slot Master, because why change it if it's working, right? And so as I was pulling the bait up and out of the water, that's when this fish hit. This one was super tiny and super aggressive, really floppy compared to the first two I caught earlier in the day. And trying to get this picture, me holding the fish to take the picture, was the only time this fish was not going absolute crazy, flopping around, and it was really hard to handle and control. I was able to obviously get the bait out and get this picture taken, and then got released back into the water. Once I got this fish back down to the water, it instantly just took off. Now I'm moving on to the fourth and final fish of this trip back in mid-August when I was back home. This fish was slightly accidental on catching it. Reason why I say that is because going back to the very first fish that I caught, the background of the picture, there's a dock right there. That dock is public, and so I was working around that dock, casting over towards it, doing a common thing that a lot of bass fishermen do, is pitching their bait and getting it to go underneath stuff that they want to, or skipping the water, what have you. Doing that with a 8-foot musky rod is kind of fun, but it's not really, I can't do it yet. So anyway, trying to do this pitching technique and whatnot, getting underneath the dock and over to the other side of the dock as best I can without going over top of the dock. Doing that, I arched it up a little bit too high, and it landed over top and onto the other side of this private dock. So as soon as it hit the water though, fish number 4 hit the bait. So then I had to climb over this guy's dock, walk up along the shoreline and whatnot, get a little bit wet, get a little bit sandy, and by doing that, I got the owner come out and talk to me because I went over his dock. I showed him why I did that, and then he was totally understandable. And so with this fourth fish though, this was by far, because I measured this one out going off of the same technique of going from the top of my rod all the way down the eyelids and whatnot, This fish measured down to just slightly above the second to last one, because this is the very last one before it goes down to the reel. It measured just slightly over this one. That one was measured at 43.5 inches. By far, thinking it was bigger than that very first one I caught. The only problem, as you can see in this picture with this one, is that when I landed it, it didn't have the luxury of that spot with the very first fish, because where I caught this one, where I got it up and out of the water, was just nothing but sand. And so it got a little bit sandy from flopping around and trying to control it. And so that's why it's a little bit sandy in the picture. I did try to rinse it off as best as I could. Thought I got both sides, but nope, I got the opposite side shown in the picture. And so it happens, I guess, when you don't have a net to actually land the fish. So other musky fishermen out there who watch this, please don't judge me too hard. I tried my best. I promise the fish was completely unharmed, because as soon as I got back in the water, helped rinse it off in the water as soon as I got back in there and got the sand off of it, and as soon as the sand got off of it and it was nice and clean again, it instantly took off, and have never seen that fish ever since. So life lessons learned though, going into this trip back home that I just got back from. Now it's a little bit of a story time. Going back home and fishing with my dad for a few days, he had caught a pretty decent sized muskie. Only problem with his fish, we did have a net, but that net probably would have been ideal for walleye fishing or maybe bass fishing or something like that, because this thing was super tiny, maybe like a 15 to 20 inch diameter. So doing that with a huge muskie, we did get it in the net. I did get it up onto the dock, but my dad was using a swim bait with 2 treble hooks on it and a huge fish flopping around in a super tiny net. What I'm thinking happened with his fish was the front treble got tangled up in the net, and then for how powerful that fish was, it flopped around enough to where the back treble hook, the fish completely ripped it out of the structure of the bait. For the brief little second that was calmed down and kind of laid itself out flat, judging by its size, it was roughly around the size of the 2 bigger ones I caught in August, possibly bigger. I don't know. We never will know, because we never got that fish and we never was able to measure it. So after catching that fish, we finally went out and got a net, an actual decent sized musky net, from side to side, because it's more oval shaped. From one side to the other, it measures out to be like 31 or 32 inches or something like that, and it's just got a huge net webbing on it, so it should be good to go from now on whenever we do go out musky fishing on the dock or when I bring my boat back home. And so this trip was a little bit more rough for me, because I had that same day that my dad had caught and we had netted, and if you want to count it or not, landed the fish. I alone that day had, I think, 6 or 7 follows. One of them wasn't too entirely sure if a muskie was actually following or if I had just been staring at the water that long with a minor movement of the water. It was kind of slightly wavy, and so not 100% sure if I actually did have one chase or not, but if not, it was total 6 fish that I saw and I raised and brought to the dock, on top of my dad catching the one, and then he also had 3 or 4 follows. So my dad had, between both of us that day, if we would have caught every single fish that we saw, we would have had a grand total of anywhere from 9 or 11 muskies. So that day would have been super awesome if we actually would have landed everything that we saw, and that one that we sort of did have, but then it got out of the net. Then going into the next day, next 2 days I think after this day, I was able to go out fishing. My dad was. He didn't. He actually caught one. Forgot about this one until just now. He actually caught this one. And then there is also that net that I was mentioning that in this case was super helpful. So this one that my dad had landed in the net, this one, with how I said on how from side to side the net measured out to be around like 31, 32 inches. I think it was 31 actually. My dad said that the fish itself was just slightly over the edges on either side. So with that net being roughly 31 inches from side to side, that fish was probably about a 32, 33 inch fish. Super happy for him because technically that is his first and only picture proof that he has ever caught a muskie. I'm personally going to go with it. That's the second muskie that he caught because of what happened with that first one, and felt really bad that we weren't able to get a picture of it. So to me, he caught 2 muskies on that trip that I was back home. Going on to the next little clip that I'm going to show here now. This is the very last day of that last trip back home. Super windy day overall. I think I was out there on the lake for maybe 7-8 hours all day long, just grinding it out, battling the wind and whatnot. Didn't have a single fish bite. It was very, very windy. The video I'm about to show you is towards the end of the night. Wind had finally calmed down. We found a fairly calm spot too, where the water wasn't as wavy or as choppy. This is after me getting the fish up and out of the water. The technique I was using then, instead of finally changed up the bait, instead of using the Joe Booker Slot Master, I used the Double Eights Esox Assault bucktail. Burning it at first and then slowing it down. Once I slowed it down, that's when I caught this fish.
Go.
Well, I finally got one. Really bad hook set. So, decent little guy there.
Yeah.
Should be like 20s or so. 20,
22 at least.
But, yep. Nice little baby muskie. Get a quick rinse. Well, out fishing multiple times, then grinding it all day today, and then got this little guy here, just getting him revived and rinsed up a little bit. Got the little hook up and through the gills on the turn there. Not really the greatest for him, but looks like he's gonna be all right.
Yep.
So just let him sit there and do that. Go. Oh. Yo, he's underneath the dock. My cousin Grant there. Can't believe it ready for him, but nope.
There it goes again.
So, and off he goes. Cool. Well, a little musky fishing in Iowa.
Yeah.
So
Clear Lake, Iowa.
So that wraps it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I sure enjoyed it. Definitely recommend going out musky fishing, or my all-time favorite, just because I can actually catch them a lot more than I catch a muskie, pike fishing. Got a video coming out later on this week, so stay tuned for that. Give this video a like, comment on it, and give my page a subscribe, and you can share my videos. Help me out, help the channel out. I would greatly appreciate it. So until next time, we'll catch you guys later. Peace.